Good morning, everybody, once again. Thank you for those of you who stayed, and thank you for those that are just joining us here in the Information Warfare Pavilion. I always say this every day that we do this. We start exactly on time because one of the Information Warfare Community's jobs is to maintain precise time with the Navy Observatory in Washington, D.C., the home of the atomic clock, which powers all your phones and all your computers with the right time. So very important. So that's why we do this right on time. Happy to have joining us this morning Admiral Brooks, who's the Commander, Office of Naval Intelligence, and he's also the Director of the National Maritime Intelligence Integration Office, NIMIO. He went to school at Caltech, got a bachelor's in political science, commissioned through OCS, too many operational tours and short tours as an intelligence officer for me to mention here. But he's also been at Central Command, Strategic Command, and Southern Command. And he assumed his current office in July of 2023. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for that introduction, Joe. I'm not smart enough to go to Caltech. I went to California Polytechnic University, San Luis Obispo. Go Mustangs. Not Broncos, that's Pomona. A lesser sister school, but a lesser institution. Really happy to be here today. One day, I hope to be on the main stage where I have to think of what my walk-up song is. I don't have it off the top of my head right now, but I would love to have that dilemma. Don't have to face me right now. Again, good morning. Really appreciate AFCEA and the United States Naval Institute to continue to provide an invaluable collaborative environment here at West 2025. I'm also not sad to be back in San Diego because when I left DC, we were still experiencing a little bit of that polar vortex. So never sad to have an opportunity to come back to. I spent large portions of my career here, so very happy to be back. Me and my team, we fight every night whether we're going to get Mexican food or go visit an Italian restaurant in Little Italy. So rough problems to have. As Joe mentioned, I've been at the helm of the Office of Naval Intelligence for about 19 months now. And no offense to any of the other senior leaders here, to include one of my many three-star bosses who just spoke most recently, but I think I have the best job in the Navy. I love being the commander of O&I. It's a fantastic institution, a great workforce, challenging mission, very rewarding. Let's talk a little bit about that. So the global maritime landscape is evolving at an unprecedented pace. Emerging threats, shifting geopolitical dynamics, rapidly advancing technologies, all contributing to an increasingly complex and contested environment. And you see that in the CNO's NAV Plan 2024. Which provides a clear roadmap of our Navy's future, emphasizing the need for a more agile, more integrated, and a more informed force. Maritime intelligence is at the heart of that vision, providing critical insights and situational awareness that will enable the Navy to outmaneuver, outcompete our adversaries in the decades to come. By harnessing the power of maritime intelligence, we can better anticipate and respond to emerging challenges and ultimately deliver the decisive naval power that our nation needs to thrive in a rapidly changing world. So the work that O&I does is absolutely critical to the daily function of global operation of the fleet and informs the actions of the most senior decision makers. I wear this uniform. I've been in the Navy for 36 years, so I focus on the fleet, but we have many customers to include combatant commands, the IC, of course, interagency to include State Department, Treasury, and we spend a lot of time fielding questions from the National Security Council and the national leadership. The unique maritime intelligence capabilities that only we provide illuminate and enable the disruption of adversary influence in the maritime domain. So you have the O&I staff. You have 5 subordinate commands that deliver deep, sophisticated knowledge of the adversary, focusing on what they fight with, how they organize to fight, how they operate in the gray zone. All this knowledge is critical to our Navy's success in competition crisis, and in conflict. There's a few things that O&I does, and only O&I does it for the intelligence community. I refer to those as the crown jewels. So those are associated with exploitation of acoustic intelligence, intelligence support to undersea warfare, and more of late, subsurface and seabed warfare, maritime foreign material exploitation, or FME, my notes are a little confused. JWICS, network resiliency, our secure compartmented intelligence network. And finally, civil maritime analysis. I want to talk about that last crown jewel, civil maritime analysis. For 250 years, America has relied on our naval services to secure the world's oceans, sustain our economy, and confront threats that challenge our way of life. The emphasis on securing the oceans almost invariably focuses on adversary threats and our own force capabilities to deter, disrupt, or defeat them. Lost in the shuffle is civil maritime. The need to understand civil maritime industry itself, specifically the manner in which it reacts to provocations that threaten the status quo. Those effects can serve as harbingers for larger geopolitical reverberations that can inform policy, drive deterrence, and enable victory. Okay, so true confessions of a lifelong intelligence professional. I am only a recent adherent and acolyte of civil maritime. I've always focused on the flashier adversary combatants. A little bit cooler, range rings, capabilities, weapon systems, right? Civil maritime, and yet, in today's day and age, increasingly important. And I'll go through a few case studies and you'll see, but I think if you read the headlines today, you know why civil maritime is important. So I chose in my remarks today to give civil maritime its day in the sun. So let's talk about it. Global maritime trade provides opportunities to deter adversaries in peacetime and crisis, and defeat them in conflict by denying access to critical strategic commodities essential to sustaining their economy or their war effort. O&I, as the nation's center of excellence for civil maritime intelligence, provides a deep comprehensive understanding of civil maritime industry and global maritime economy necessary to inform U.S. policymakers, military planners, and operational commanders, and provide decision advantage in the maritime domain. So a couple case studies. Russia, Ukraine. Ongoing regional conflict between the Ukraine and the Middle East have highlighted global maritime shipping's vulnerabilities to disruption and the importance of securing trade routes. If we begin with Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, that invasion nearly halted all of Ukraine's imports, particularly of agricultural products, contributing to global food prices hitting an all-time high in March of 2022. Even with the establishment of the Black Sea Grain Initiative in July 2022, Ukrainian agricultural exports by sea remained at below pre-war levels. And the effects of these reduced maritime exports were felt most acutely in low to middle income countries that experience higher levels of food price inflation and food insecurity. Following Russia's withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative in July 2023, Ukraine announced a unilateral humanitarian corridor from which ships could access 3 Ukrainian Black Sea ports, following a route through Turkish, Bulgarian, and Romanian waters. This unilateral corridor has allowed Ukraine to expand to other exports besides agricultural goods, particularly metal and ores. The unilateral corridor has allowed Ukraine to nearly double its seaborne exports compared to the Black Sea Grain Initiative and the Black Sea exports that have come close. They've risen back up to close to pre-war levels. The success of this corridor is due in part to the Ukrainians' military success in the Black Sea, threatening the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and their ability to threaten Russian shipping as a credible deterrent. Shipping companies have accepted the current risk levels associated with calling in Ukrainian ports via the unilateral corridor, despite several incidents of commercial vessels being struck in Ukrainian Black Sea ports this fall. This trade remains reliant on the marine insurance industry's willingness to continue to provide vessels with war risk insurance. Shifting to the Middle East. The conflict between Israel and Hamas has spilled over into the maritime domain as the Houthis, Iranian proxies, have been attacking merchant shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden for more than a year. This further highlights the critical nature of maritime shipping and its vulnerability, particularly when transiting through natural choke points during a conflict. Red Sea, obviously a key strategic sea lane of communication with approximately 10% of global trade transiting this waterway. In mid-December 2023, following weeks of Houthi attacks, most major shipping companies had diverted from the Red Sea, reducing shipping traffic there by about 60%. Commercial vessels diverting around the Cape of Good Hope led to longer voyages and decreased the supply of ships, causing container shipping rates to more than double since Houthi attacks began. Higher freight costs have increased global goods inflation by approximately 0.5% worldwide. However, an oversupply of commercial vessels in the market caused by overbuilding during COVID mitigated some of the negative effects of diverting. The industry remains vulnerable to additional disruptions, and the potential exists for black swan events, such as strikes by dock workers or the shutting down of another choke point. Looking forward, despite the recent ceasefire agreement, we expect Houthis to continue targeting some merchant traffic, especially shipping associated with Israel in the Red Sea well into 2025. As shipping industry has made plans and created contracts for the first part of this year based on the assumption that rerouting will continue well into 2025, we don't believe the industry will readjust shipping back to the Red Sea until it's confident that Houthis will not recommence attacks. There's a very long lag time associated with ceasing of conflict and the commercial shipping industry revising its plans to take advantage of that. As an example, in November, CMA CGM, a major French container liner, announced it would resume some business through the Red Sea. However, after backlash from its customers, whose goods they were carrying, presumably because of increased risk and associated costs, the company reversed its decision to resume some trade through the Red Sea. So, again, a recent adherence to civil maritime. Black Sea, very important. Red Sea, in the headlines every day. The other thing we look to is we sort of extrapolate what is going on in those bodies of water with what potentially the Western Pacific looks like. And causes one to pause and wonder, what is China's reliance on trade and commodity flows to support its economy and military? So I asked the team to take a look at that. Although conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East have highlighted the critical nature and vulnerability of global maritime shipping, they should also remind us that the threat of denying an adversary access to maritime trade is a tool that can be used to deter, in the event of conflict, defeat an adversary. China. Approximately 90% of all Chinese trade, imports and exports, is moved via the sea. China remains heavily reliant on seaborne imports to meet its energy, food, and raw material needs. This heavy reliance on maritime trade and China's geographic position makes its commodities flows potentially vulnerable to disruption. Because of China's geographic position, almost all its maritime trade must pass through one or more maritime choke points, the most important being the Strait of Malacca. China's reliance on maritime trade and strategic maritime choke points worldwide, combined with demonstrated vulnerabilities to seaborne commerce, creates opportunities to deter China by demonstrating that actions taken to force unification with Taiwan could have consequences well beyond the East China Sea. That is, any fight in the Western Pacific will likely have global maritime implications. Now, disrupting a nation's maritime trade can be a bit of a cat and mouse game. Malign actors and illicit networks seek to employ increasingly deceptive tactics and novel methods to exploit global supply chains. For example, Countless articles of the last few years have referenced a growing fleet of commercial oil tankers, often referred to as the dark fleet, the ghost fleet, or shadow fleet, operate outside of legitimate commercial networks and exclusively involved in sanctioned oil trades. These tankers often maintain opaque ownership, operating outside Western insurance, financial, and shipping service circles. They undertake frequent flag registry and name changes, falsified cargo and vessel documents, employing enhanced obfuscation tactics. I like these big words, but sometimes I can't say them. You know what I mean? I want to get one more time. Obfuscation tactics. And they conduct dark ship-to-ship transfers of illicit oil cargoes in international waters. The development of dark fleets underscores the complexities and challenges of impinging upon or curtailing a nation's maritime trade. For example, despite stringent international sanctions, Russian, Iranian, and Venezuelan oil has continued to flow without reliance on the normal international fleet. So in conclusion, global economy relies on the vast maritime trade network, a critical lifeline our adversaries depend on to sustain them in peacetime and conflict. ONI's world-class commercial maritime experts empowers us to identify and exploit adversary vulnerabilities, enabling us to disrupt and diminish their influence across this essential global network. As we move forward in an increasingly complex and competitive world, understanding the civil maritime industry and the maritime domain is key to informing policy, driving deterrence, and when necessary, enabling victory. From a warfighting mindset, ONI is delivering the exquisite civil maritime intelligence support that the fleet needs to ensure our Navy remains the most powerful and capable in the world, and that our national security and American way of life are preserved. Thank you for your time. I look forward to taking your questions. Sir.
Yes, good morning. I'm Cleveland Easton with OpNav. And just a question about ONI and how you see ONI integrating with the MOCs to be able to provide support.
So I sat on a panel, artificial intelligence machine learning panel yesterday, and I sort of got that question. I look at ONI's responsibility to call through a lot of data and turn it into intelligence in support of customers. Again, because I wear this uniform, most of those customers, I'm a big fan of the fleet customers. That could be an IS-1 who's an independent duty intelligence specialist on a DDG afloat. It could be a carrier strike group N2. It could be a combatant command. It could be the MOC. So I view the MOC as one of my customers, and what ONI is intended to do is deliver decision advantage to the fleet commander to enable them better to maneuver the fleet to achieve mission success.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir. Uh-oh.
This is an easy one, Michael,
All
because I
right.
know it's something that you're passionate about too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vice Admiral, retired Bob
Retired,
Sharp,
very retired.
former COM ONI.
And it is a great job. When people would ask me when I was in your position,
job.
they're like, "How are you enjoying it?" I said, "Well, I'm inside the Beltway, but I'm outside of the Pentagon and I'm in command, right? And like every day is a joy being in there because of the people that do the business, and I know you feel that way as well." This morning's panel was a great discussion on the importance of international partnerships. One of the things I've always touted is we not only have good friends, we have friends that are really good, right? It's a competitive advantage we have. Can you just speak to some of the ways that ONI strengthens and expands working with our international partners?
Absolutely. As a little bit of an aside before I answer Admiral Sharp's question. So ONI is Echelon 3 command. my immediate chain of command, the Naval Intelligence Activity at Echelon 2, and above that, the OPNAV N2N6, who was just on the stage, is Esh-1, both of whom are across the river in the Pentagon, which allows me considerable autonomy. I don't have to go to near as many meetings as they do, so I love my job. It's fantastic. Okay, so Bob asked, how do we rely on partners? And honestly, you know, when we think about everything we do, we put in the framework of, are we ready for 2027? Are we ready for conflict with China in 2027? And we look at what are some of our comparative advantages over China in the event of conflict? And right off the top, you got to say partnerships with allies. United States is a big country. The Navy is a pretty big Navy, but even we can't do anything. And so having partners that we can rely on to support us, to do some things, be places that we can't, to support collection that we necessarily can't do. And so a significant number of partners, whether it's in the Western Pacific, whether it's in the High North, that we rely on and have a great information sharing relationships with them as well. So big fan. And I get the pleasure of interacting with them on a regular basis, whether it's home games in Washington, D.C. or traveling to their locales. So again, big fan of those allies and partners. Eric, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Admiral Brooks. Speaking as a Cal Poly linebacker, it's the other Cal Poly. It's okay.
It's okay. Bronco, it's all right.
Let's go Broncos. It's still a
Go
green and
Broncos.
gold, right?
That's
Come on.
right. That's right.
So emerging in the fleet has been data science at sea. And O&I was deeply involved in data science early on. They were great at supporting the fleet when we were standing up the FOSIFs and FOSICs. And does O&I intend on becoming part of the Data Science at Sea initiative or supporting it in some fashion?
Is that my question?
Yeah, Data Science
All
at
right.
Sea initiative support help.
So a couple things, Eric. I'm writing that down. Data science at sea, because I'm not familiar with it. A couple things about data science. I caution you about everything I say next because I'm a political science major who did not go to Caltech. As a matter of fact, I'm not that great of a political science major because I went to California Polytechnic to get my liberal arts degree. And so, I was mulling that over in my head yesterday as I was sitting on the AI panel, like, what am I doing here? But here's my role. I serve as the lowest common denominator, right? If I can understand it, if you can explain it to me, then you can explain it to anybody. So the way I view it is, and particularly as Commander O&I has a data problem. And I think as a Navy, we have a data problem. And at the Navy Service Intelligence Center, our job is to cull through all that data and turn it into intelligence smartly. That's only part of the step, right? And AI, ML can help us with that. Data science can help us with that. We've also kind of gone away from capabilities we used to have where that information, all that work that we do is easily accessible across every domain to the fleet. And we are working to get back toward to that capability, putting stuff in the cloud. And we have a team just on the other side of this curtain from ORCA, O&I's characterization for O&I's repository for characterization of the adversary. We do love our acronyms. And so that is part of our data effort to corral it all and make it accessible. That's your specific data science at sea. No clue, pal. But I'll ask some of the folks back at the ranch, and we'll get back to you.
I thought it was a softball, but
So, thanks, Eric.
Hey, sir, good morning. Thank you for that. Lieutenant Commander Brett Jansen over at SRT. I'm wondering, as we see the proliferation of unmanned systems in the environment that are all mesh networked, they're providing that maritime domain awareness picture. That also creates a massive ACINT-PED situation. So, wondering how is ONI addressing the very exponentially increasing ACINT-PED demand signal?
Yeah, we have plans. And so when we talk about growth in data, ACINT, for example, just aside from the unmanned, the autonomous vehicles, just actually, our biggest producer of acoustic intelligence is our own submarines. And we're talking levels going from terabytes per mission to a petabyte per mission. And so it's an exponential growth curve for stuff, for data that which we need to turn into intelligence. And so we've taken some steps to do things like have data fusion centers which call through the data and pull out some of the more important pieces of it. But ONI is responsible for all third phase acoustic intelligence exploitation. And it's just growing and growing and growing, as are the demands for it. So not just adversary submarine acoustic signatures, but now surface ships, and also their autonomous and uncrewed vehicles. And so I recognize the problem. We have requirements for us to try to keep pace with the astronomical growth in the data. So we have a plan. What I'm really looking for is resourcing to be able to get after that plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Morning, sir. Phil Stiefel with Lilt.
Phil, good to see you again.
Good to see you too, sir. One of the themes that I see in our DoD projects is we live in silos much more than we should. And so my question for you is, if we've got a successful project with Brooks, but we think that there is a need in Kiowa or Nimitz or Farragut for the technology and what we're doing with that center, what's the best way to get connected with those other places and get us out of silos and getting the technology moving across those boundaries?
Yeah, I won't say that we've solved problems with silos at ONI, but we have across ONI we have mission managers who look at different aspects. So, for instance, China or global maritime. I got Bob Pasquarella here to help me out with the really hard questions on civil maritime. So I got a China, Near East, Russia, Far East. Iran, Middle East mission managers, and we've got multiple mission managers across the enterprise that cross-cut across Brooks or Kennedy or Nimitz or the ONI staff to be on to develop, make sure we're thinking about all aspects of a problem, and all folks understand what the left hand understands what the right hand is doing. I won't say we've solved world hunger, but I think that puts us in a better place to avoid those silos.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody.